Welcome to Every Single Journey, a family life original podcast for singles. My name is Becki. I'm a single girl in my 30s who is passionately pursuing this life God has given me. Join me as we navigate the season of singleness together. Joining us on episode 9 are Mike.
Hi.
And
Hi.
Robbie.
That was very smooth, Mike.
Thank you.
People are going to be so excited. It's great.
I'm really good at this.
Yeah.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
So what do we do when we are the new kid on the block? Those times when we find ourselves in a new place where we don't know anyone. Mike and Robbie, you've both experienced this a few different times throughout your life's journey. What was it like?
Well, first, I will just say to whoever's listening, if you're in that boat, I'm really sorry because it's a really hard place to be in. Like, everyone hates that feeling of, I don't know everyone. I don't know where to sit in the cafeteria. You know, like that feeling. So, first of all, sorry that you're in that. And second of all, it won't last forever, I promise. So I'll just open by saying, sorry if that's you. It's really hard, and I don't think it'll last forever. So that I would say would be my opening thought.
Oh, I'm supposed to have an opening thought too.
Maybe you can bounce off that.
Can you ask that question one more time, Becki?
Sure.
You're doing a great job being yourself.
Thank you. I'm trying.
So those times in life when we are in a new place and we don't know anybody, what is it like?
What is it like? Wow. Well, Robbie already mentioned it. I think you covered it really well. It's really hard. And I think that sometimes if this is a podcast about singleness, we've already talked on an earlier episode about loneliness and feeling alone. I feel like sometimes that just compounds itself, one thing on top of another. Yeah, being the new kid on the block can be really, really lonely. And I think sometimes it can be discouraging because everybody else already sort of has their friends and these relationships already solidified, and you're trying to break in with something new because you've just arrived. So that can be an extra challenge.
And it's interesting because I don't think that all the time, maybe sometimes, but I don't think all the time groups are intentionally trying to be exclusive. New person, put up walls, don't let them in. I think we become so comfortable with who we're with that sometimes we forget to reach out to that person who's sitting at the other table or who's sitting in the other cubicle or sitting 2 pews down. You know, like, it's really easy to accidentally leave people out. So I think that's something to remember when you're in that spot of I'm feeling left out. Well, just try to remind yourself that more than likely this group is not trying on purpose to exclude you. I remember going to college for the first time. And it was an interesting journey for me because I was a little bit older than most of the average college students, particularly coming in as a freshman. And I remember it being, just really, really hard, being where do I fit in? And then alongside that, trying to find a church. Because, for years, my whole life, I've grown up in the same church with the same people, the same friends, same family, same everything. And now I'm having to find that for the first time. And I remember that feeling just really challenging, walking into church and being well, I'm here and I'm hearing what the pastor is saying and I'm seeing all the people, but no one's coming up to me. No one's talking to me. No one's inviting me to dinner. And that, just how difficult that can be. So I remember when I came home, Mike was a new face for me. And I remember thinking specifically with church, oh, this is a new face. I want to make sure that I am on purpose about hey, new face, do you want to sit with me? I don't know if you remember that or not, but
I do. I do remember that.
It was very much an intentional choice on my part. I hated that feeling. This person is probably feeling that. Maybe there's something I can do to ease that discomfort. And then kind of accidentally, we became best friends, which wasn't necessarily the intention.
That's all it took.
But that was a happy ending.
That is awesome not awesome that you went through that at college and feeling that, but awesome that it turned into an action for you of, I just experienced being in a new place. I'm now back on my turf and, there's a new face I want to make him feel welcome. So, Mike, I'm really curious, what was it like from your perspective? As Robbie said, you were new in town. Why were you new in town? Like, was it just church that you were new at, or was it job or college? Or can you give us a little bit more to that story from your perspective?
Sure. Yeah. So I was new in town because I started a job here at Family Life, and I was looking around for churches, and I don't think I was intentionally testing out churches, but I was noticing that there were an awful lot of churches that I would just slip into and slip out of at the end of the service, and it sort of felt like nobody even noticed I was there or would have missed me if I weren't there. And so I show up at this specific church one Sunday, and Robbie is in the lobby, and right off the bat, he walks over and says, "Hey, do you want to sit with me?" And so immediately that just felt like such a it was very different from this feeling of walking into a church all by yourself, not knowing anybody, and walking out not having met anybody. So this huge contrast to having somebody come up to you and say, "Hey, I see you. I know that you're new. You want to come sit with me?" And so I still attend that church for multiple reasons, but that's certainly one of the reasons. Because
you gotta tell them about the Mohawk.
Tell
them about the Mohawk.
I first met Robbie, and I have really good first impressions of people. He had a Mohawk, so I immediately knew that we would never be friends because he's way too cool for me.
But I love that you bring that up and wanted you to bring that up, because we do all kind of have our first initial judgment of someone. And so, I would speak to you if you're in that situation, like, well, try to have an open mind for the people that are around you, because they might be different than someone that you're used to hanging out with, but you never know what's going to happen. And so I would say maybe when you're in those shoes, I know in this story I was the one, reaching out, but sometimes it might be up to us to be like, okay, well, no one is reaching out to me. I'm just going to take a stab at it. I'm just going to say, can I sit with you? Hi, what's your name? Can I, maybe even to someone who has a Mohawk, to someone that you don't think you might naturally connect with, might be the person you wind up connecting with. So I would say, take a risk if you're feeling lonely. Take a risk if you're feeling new. And instead of, playing the victim of, oh, no one notices me, no one cares, what if I'm going to be the one to step forward?
And I've had to do that in situations that I've been in, whether it was I'm a new employee, the work environment and surroundings are new, and I don't necessarily know many of the people, but I haven't necessarily relocated from family, but I'm in a totally different friend group. I'm in a totally different atmosphere. And I've had to be the one to step out and say, "Hi, I'm Becki," and just see where it goes. And part of that, too, is because I realize that as a very introverted person, the first impression somebody gets of me is going to probably be very different than who I actually am. Because when I'm in a new setting and everything is unfamiliar, I just go to my instincts, which is to be quiet and observe and be more wallflower-like. And my personality doesn't necessarily come out. But then as I get more comfortable and I get to know people, in a sense, my guard, I guess, is let down. And you get to see the sarcastic side of me or the goofy side of me or the things that you didn't think would come from me. And it's just really interesting how if I reverse the roles, when I'm the new person, the other person or the group of people sitting at that table could be having that exact same feeling. There's somebody new in their midst. They don't know them. They haven't met them yet. All of a sudden, they're reverting to their natural reserved self or shyness, or maybe they're a little bit more energetic and outgoing, and that's their natural reaction to life. And they don't want to be too overbearing. And so it's helpful for me to remember, oh, wait, it comes like both sides are feeling it. It's not just me being the new person in the room. It's also everybody at the lunch table is aware that there's somebody new. And most of the time, they want to make you feel welcome. They're just trying to figure out how to best do that without scaring you off, because that could be a thing too.
Well, you talk about scripture on here, what scriptures, and something that comes to my mind is the do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You know, like, well, what would I want if I was new in a job or a church or a country or whatever? You know, like, oh, I would want X, Y, and Z. So I'm now going to try to be and do X, Y, Z for this person, because this is what I would want. I also think it can be a blessing sometimes when it never feels like a blessing at first, but it can wind up being a blessing sometimes when you are the new person, because sometimes you wind up connecting with someone that you otherwise normally wouldn't. So again, I said, I was new in college and that was a new thing for me. And, there's 3,000 seats in this auditorium for chapel. So I found a group at first that I thought I fit with and would sit with them from time to time. And you always, you want to sit with somebody. You don't want to be alone in chapel. And that friend group kind of like disbanded. And I wound up finding these two guys that were so different from me. I was a crazy, wild theater major. And then one of them was actually a high school student who was taking college classes, working on getting some credit. So he didn't really fit in because of that. And then one of them was a transfer from Liberty University, and he was a linguistics major. So you have this math, this person who's not even a freshman yet, who's going to be a math major and is a math whiz. You have this crazy theater guy, and you have this linguistics major who's a transfer. And it just kind of became this unlikely trio when we found each other, because this high schooler was actually helping in the after-school math program. So because I struggled so much with math, I would go there and he would help me with my math homework, and then vice versa, I would help him with his English homework because I was good at that. And it just kind of became this symbiotic thing. And so I look at that time in my life and say, boy, it was so hard when it started and I wanted to be anywhere else in the world but there. But because I was in that uncomfy spot, it kind of forced me to meet these two other people who were so different from me, but I was involved with both of their weddings, and we're still connected, and now they have children and I'm part of their life still. And so it's you never know who you might wind up meeting because you're in that new place now.
When we find ourselves in that new place and it's hard, it's uncomfortable, maybe we have somebody reaching out to us or we're doing the reaching out, when you start to settle in a little bit and you start to get those invites to group activities, or maybe you're super brave and you initiate the invite to the group activity, what are some of your initial responses? Is it, oh yeah, I'm all in, I'm going to go? Or is there a fear or a struggle there of, do I go? Do I not go? How do I act? How do I not act? Let's flesh that out a little bit.
And I'll be really curious to hear some different thoughts here, because I know Mike and I have very different personalities, which is kind of funny. We make such good friends, even though we're so different. So I'll be curious to hear what he has to say versus what I have to say.
Well, I had to set a rule for myself, and the rule was if somebody invites me to something and I'm actually available to go, I have to say yes and I have to go. Otherwise, I would be totally happy just staying at home, doing nothing, or reading a book.
Or playing Mario.
And so I made that rule for myself. Of course, there are exceptions, and I break the rule from time to time. But I can look back on all of those times where I wanted to say, no, I can't do anything. I'd rather just hang out at home by myself. But I said, okay, I'll do that, because I had my rule that I made for myself. And I'm so thankful that I did. All of those times, there were so many of them that I would look back on, and I remember distinctly thinking, I'm really glad I said yes to that. Otherwise, this other cool thing never would have happened, or I never would have made this connection, or this relationship wouldn't have formed. So that's how I approached it, was if I'm looking for these things, when they present themselves, I have to at least be open enough to say yes and try it. And so I made that rule, and it worked out pretty well.
And I feel like I can kind of talk into like the other side of it from the invitee standpoint, because sometimes I'll make decisions for other people. Oh, they're not going to want to come. They're going to be uncomfortable. They probably won't enjoy this movie anyway. And so I'll just decide for you, well, I don't want you to feel like you have to say yes, so I just won't invite you. But how much more hurtful that can be,
no.
you know? And so now I've kind of made a policy, how you're saying, like, I make a policy, like, I'll just say yes if I'm free. And so for me, I just say, like, I'll always invite. Like, I'll always invite. They don't have to say yes. They can say no. They can say they're busy, whatever. But, like, I'll always offer that invitation. And sometimes I'm surprised by who will say, yeah. I'm like, oh, I didn't think you would want to come. I'm so glad that you're going to come, you know? I remember when Dylan was new here, and I knew him from when he was, younger kid growing up. Well, now he's all grown up, and he's in his first career, here in this building. And I was going to be having a Christmas party, and I thought, I kind of feel like I should invite him, but like, maybe he'll be uncomfortable. Maybe he won't want to come. Nobody else really knows him. So I don't want to make other people feel like, but I was like, you know what? That's my policy. I'm going to invite. And he came and he like brought hot chocolate for everyone and candy canes. And it was like, now he's like so well connected with the people here. And he has such a great, tight, friend group here. And, I think part of it is, hey, you got to take the risk and invite somebody and let them make a decision of if they're going to or not.
And Robbie, I appreciate hearing that you have to let the other person make the decision and you're open to inviting people just to come. Here's my door. It's open. And I like if I'm available, I'll go, because I feel like I have to force myself to kind of mesh the two, because for me, the biggest hurdle is not, am I available to go? Do I really think I'm welcome to go? It's, are they going to really want to invite me and really have me there after they learn of all of my body being allergic to the world problems? Because I have food allergies. So if it's anything to do with food, there is this huge hubbub that has to happen if I'm going to eat there or I'm just not going to eat there, which I'm totally fine with. But also it's like, but now I have to tell you I can't eat your food, and then you're going to think I don't like you as a host, and oh no, now what am I going to do? And then add on top of that, we're just going to go on a whole saga here. I have allergies to different fragrances. So if you're burning candles or if you have a cat with a litter box, like there are so many different things that I have to be like, so I'd love to come to your party and I'd love to participate, but also here's my whole book of how not to kill me. But can I still come? And it's like, oh, how do I communicate all that? But also not give into the fear of rejection that I am pre-putting in their mind. Like, oh, I'm just pre-telling them they're going to judge me and not accept me for this, when reality is it's usually not that big a deal. Like, right. It's usually fine for me to either bring my own food or they'll cater to it or however that plays out. And not burning a candle really isn't a big deal for one night. And I make it so much bigger in my brain, but then that prevents me from going and getting to know people and further creating this problem of, oh, I'm brand new and now I'm really feeling brand new and I'm not getting all the inside jokes and I'm not getting to know people, but I'm also not going to things because of all this preconceived, you're going to judge me, when I could just simply say, here it is in a nutshell, and we'll see where it goes.
Take it or leave it. Isn't it funny that we so often come up with these preconceived notions of what other people are going to assume or think? I feel like there have been many times where I've thought, well, if they really knew me, then they wouldn't have invited me to this or to that, or I can't really let them get to know me, because once they really understand, and to what you were saying, Becki, we make all of these. We come up with all these thoughts and ideas in our mind about, well, if they knew this about me, they wouldn't want me to come. They knew this. And like, I was just sitting here on the other side of things, hearing it for the first time, and I'm like, it's about a candle or a person. Of course, the person is the more important. Of course, they're not going to light their candle. But yet, when we're the one who has that sensitivity, or we're the one who has that thing we're burdening somebody else with, it's immediately all of the red flags go up, and like, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe it would be better if I didn't. Maybe I shouldn't. And so I like what you were saying about you bring it full circle by just believing that if they invited you, they actually meant what they said, and that your presence there is more valuable than a candle, for the sake of that argument. But yeah, I appreciated hearing that.
You mentioned something that sparked another wire in my brain. You said something about, they're tittering with their inside jokes or something like that. And that reminded me of a recent experience of mine where I got to spend some time overseas in another country. And I don't speak the language, and some of them do speak some English, but not all of them. And obviously they're the most comfortable speaking their own language, just like, I'm going to have to focus really hard to talk to them in their language. If I really want to have a heart-to-heart, of course I want it to be in my own language. So we would do these, in-country trips where we would travel out to villages and do different ministry things. And I was the only white boy there. Everybody else was, from this people group. And yeah, they would get going, just talking back and forth. And you do kind of feel like, wow, I'm totally on the outside looking in. I want to feel like I'm a part of this group, but I'm not. And I don't know the language. I don't know the culture. The food isn't my favorite, but I'm doing my best. And yeah, it is moments like that you... A lot of things happen. One, I think you tend to look up more because you're like, oh Lord, you are my personal friend who knows me best. Mm-hmm. Even though no one in this country fully understands me, you do. So like, there's that you can take comfort in. And for me, it would be the Psalms. You say, what scripture? The Psalms are just someone pouring out their heart who's angry or frustrated or feeling unseen or hurt or betrayed or whatever it might be. So, I might encourage you, whoever you are, listening, crack open the Psalms. They are rich with comfort from the Lord. So I would say that. Well, then fast forward, my sister and cousin wind up coming to visit me and do some trips. And we're sitting in the backseat of a taxi going back and forth so fast in English. And my friend turns back and he goes, wow, I speak English, but like you're talking so fast, I cannot understand. Like, Robbie, is this how you feel when we go back and forth? And it was like, I think this light bulb moment for both of us, mm-hmm. where we each kind of realized, oh, wow, I was not trying to put up a wall. It just happened by accident. And same thing for them, for me to have the compassion to realize, oh, they're not trying to build a wall. They're just not thinking about it. And so I would say, to encourage you, if you're in that spot, realize probably they're not trying to build a wall. And on the flip side, try to think about it from the other perspective. If you are with someone and you do all have a bunch of inside jokes, try to remember, hey, thus and such is with us. They don't know this joke. Thus and such is here. Can we change the topic to talk about what's going on in your life? Just try to get your little antennas up and be aware of how you're treating people, because you might unintentionally be putting that wall up.
I think for me, one of the times that I've been new in a setting and relied on God the most to help me feel comfortable and also help me to put myself out there, but also let other people come up to me and just kind of try to find that balance, was when I was searching for a church, because I'd been attending a church for quite a while, and it's a great church, Bible believing, but the Lord made it clear it wasn't the right church for me. and that he wanted me to start looking for a different church. And it was quite a long process, but through that process, I went to several different churches. And one thing I was looking for is like, where do I fit? Like, there are a lot of good churches in our area, but like, where do I fit? And I really had to take a step back and not necessarily ask that question of where do I fit, but start praying, Lord, where do you have me fitting? Because I was basing so much of where do I fit on my feelings and the external things around me that I was forgetting the fact that God has a perfect place for me and he's guiding me to that. And sometimes when we're in a new setting, it's very clear, oh, God asked me to take this job. I am now moving from my hometown to a new place for this job, and I know that's clear. But in this case, it was, I'm not moving from my hometown. God is just asking me to switch to a different church because of the reasons that he wants me to be at a different church. And so just really getting on my knees and relying on the Lord to show me where he had me to fit in, but also to show up at the same time and drive to a new location, sit in the parking lot, park in a spot where I literally could sit in my car for a few minutes to get up the courage to walk into a church all by myself where I may or may not know anybody because I didn't really research, oh, where are my friends going? Where's any of this? I just started researching churches and would try them. And it's like, oh, I'm walking into a new place all by myself. Like, what am I going to do? And just seeing what the Lord had for me and just knowing that as uncomfortable and hard as that whole process was, walking into a different church I'd pick a church and then go 3 or 4 times and then pray about it and then pick a different church, go 3 or 4 times. And it was hard. And it was the same like hard process over and over again. And then when the Lord made it clear, okay, this is your church, getting to know the people and being welcomed by them, joining a ladies' Bible study and going and getting to know the ladies. It's been wonderful to see as God asked me to be faithful and take those steps. He equally supplied the strength and the courage and the ability to overcome the hard and the emotions of it to then give me what he had for me. And it was just a really fun but challenging experience.
I think something I would share, like, you're never really the new kid on the block if you have a relationship with Christ, right? He could feel far away, but he's not. He's right there. And he could feel like he's not talking to you, but he's right beside you. And I spent 2 years living in Boston when I was doing my graduate work. And it's funny, I look back on those 2 years, and those were the 2 years where I grew the most in my faith. It wasn't when I was growing up surrounded by my Christian family. It wasn't when I went to Christian college after that. It was when God plopped me in the middle of a huge city where there was absolutely nobody that I knew and not a whole lot of Christians that I ever found. And I just remember praying. I prayed every day, God, would you please give me a really close, tight-knit group of believers, of godly young men who I can connect with. And he didn't give me that in those 2 years that I was there. He gave me that later. I think that those prayers were paving the way for the next season of life, which is amazing. But during those 2 years, what he was teaching me is you better figure out what you believe in and why, and then stand up for that. So it's sort of figuring out my faith for myself. But he was really teaching me that you're not alone. Even if you're in this big city and you know absolutely nobody, God is there right beside you. And I think the reality is, unless Jesus Christ is your best friend, then anything you search for in somebody else is not going to ultimately fulfill.
I love that. We're never alone. Christ is always with us, even when it feels like the opposite. He's always there and always guiding and has a purpose for this particular season and this particular step, even if it doesn't go according to how we think it should.
Does it ever?
No. Thanks for listening to episode 9 of Every Single Journey. If you liked what you've heard, click the subscribe button to be notified when future episodes are available. You can also share this podcast on your social media pages so others can be encouraged too. If you're looking for more faith-based content like this, be sure to check out Family Life's other original podcasts, including If That Makes Sense, Therese Talk, 10 Minutes With, and the Parable Podcast. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Your financial gifts make podcasts like this possible as we seek to share the hope we have in Jesus. You can find out more on our website at familylife.org.